Court all rise.
The court is in session this morning in the matter of State of Maine versus Julie Keene. This is CR 18, document 731. The defendant is present in the court at this time along with his attorney. The matter before the court is a sentencing hearing today before some levels of decorum throughout these proceedings. If individuals find that it would be too difficult to maintain composure and decorum to the degree you feel it's necessary to step outside, I would certainly encourage you to do that. I also, with regard to the coverage in these proceedings, there is some obviously media coverage here, and that is allowed. However, the court does have authority to regulate to some degree the method of coverage. And I understand that there may be individuals who are participating who would have expressed a preference not to be filmed while they are making their presentation. The state's attorney will identify those particular individuals who have made that request. She will make that known to the media assembled, which individuals should not be videoed during that process. And I would urge you to respect those requests as part of your coverage on the regulation method of coverage here today. The court has received in advance of today's proceedings a number of filings from various parties. I want to make that known for the record. Specifically, at the outset of this process after the trial, the court made a request that a pre-sentence investigation be prepared. That has been prepared and submitted to the court as well as the parties. I understand the parties have received and reviewed that. In addition to the pre-sentence investigation, the courts also requested and ordered a forensic evaluation of the defendant. That too resulted in an examination and a report being submitted to the court. That report as well has been shared with the parties and is part of the consideration that this court will give in making its sentencing determination. The court has also received formal pre-sentencing memoranda from both the state and from the defendant. The court has reviewed those memoranda. The court has also received victim impact statements from various individuals that were submitted through the state's attorney. The court again has received and reviewed those materials. And finally, the court has reviewed a film, video montage of still photographs entitled the Michaela Conley slideshow, which the state has prepared and presented and the court has viewed as well. Are we prepared to proceed with the sentencing hearing this time?
We are, Your Honor.
We are ahead. Ms. Yvonne.
Your Honor, it is a sad truth that sentencing hearing is a most difficult process because of the inherent difficulty in fashioning a just sentence, which is tailored to both the facts of the killing and the particular characteristics and history of the killer. The court is required in certain ways to compare the taking of one person's life to the taking of another person's life in considering comparable sentences. And the court is required in some senses to compare the life of one murderer to the life of another murderer. It is a difficult, nearly impossible calculus to make, a blend of both objective comparisons and subjective assessments based on experience and instinct and judgment. It is a process which the state has undertaken and the defense has as well. And it is the unenviable obligation of our profession to do that in an effort to seek justice and recommend and impose a just sentence in this most horrible of cases. But the court knows And I expect everybody in this room knows that no matter what sentence the court imposes, there is no sentence that can undo what the defendant did. It cannot bring back to life the beautiful, generous, adventurous, loving, complex Michaela. It can't fill the void that Michaela's murder has left in the lives of all those who knew and loved her. And it cannot create the world that would surely have been better for having her in it. The court sentence can reflect the true nature of this murder, however, and this murderer. This murder was committed with extreme and prolonged cruelty, was accompanied by a violent sexual assault, and was committed by a self-absorbed, devious, remorseless killer who used and still tries to use his superficial charm to manipulate those around him in order to aggrandize himself. In step one of the analysis, the court must make an assessment about what is called the base or basic sentence to impose, and by doing that must view the circumstances of the murder of Michaela Conley and the sexual assault of Michaela Conley and attempt to place it on a continuum of ways in which those crimes can be committed. It is important for the court to know a number of facts, and beyond those which I have cited in my memorandum, I would like to highlight some of the more salient facts of the way Julie Keene took the life of Michaela Conley. On June 1st, 2018, between 3:36 a.m., when we last see Michaela alive on the surveillance camera of the Connors Emerson School, and 7:05 a.m., when the defendant dragged her lifeless body toward a makeshift grave, Julie Keene struck Michaela over and over again, strangled her, dragged her tiny body across the rough pavement, and raped her. Dr. Greenwald testified about the injuries that she suffered. Dr. Greenwald documented 11 different kinds of injury to her head and her face, multiples of those different kinds of injuries to her head and her face. Dr. Greenwald documented 4 different kinds of injury to her mouth, multiples of some of those kinds of injury to her mouth. 12 different kinds of injury to her neck alone, including multiple hemorrhages in multiple locations of her neck. 15 different kinds of injury to her torso, her arms, and her legs, including multiples of some of those different types of injuries. And 4 different types of injury to her genitals. The way Julie Keene took the life of Michaela Conley is the very definition of depraved indifference. It was outrageous, it was revolting, it was savage, it was brutal, and it was shocking conduct, and demonstrated an almost total lack of concern and appreciation for the value of Michaela's life. This extreme cruelty, coupled with the vicious sexual assault, makes a life sentence an appropriate consideration in this first step of the analysis. The depravity, the cruelty, the savagery of the killing when compared to all other ways in which the crime of murder can be committed, they are a basic sentence of 70 years up to life. In the second step of this necessary calculus, the court is required to consider the murderer himself and to consider any mitigating and aggravating factors about his life, his behavior, and his history. And it is true in every defendant that I have ever seen in my 30-year career, there is always, if you look hard enough, some degree of mitigating factor. And I'm not here to suggest that he is without mitigating factors. He was young, and we often ascribe to youth an impetuousness that is considered often a mitigating factor. He has a documented and tragic history of childhood abuse. We are not here to diminish that or to ignore it. And he does have a history, although somewhat spotty, of employment. And while it is fair for the court to consider those as mitigating factors, it is also important for the court to note that not every 21-year-old takes the life of another, that there are many people who were abused in childhood, and probably people sitting in this very room, who go on not to abuse others, but to go on to help others. The aggravating factors in this case are vastly greater than the mitigating factors. One of the fair considerations for the court is what the impact has been on those people who loved and knew Michaela, and the impact that her loss, her murder has had on them. And my best efforts to describe this would be insufficient. And her loved ones have provided statements to the court, and many of them will speak here today, more eloquently than I ever could. It is fair for the court to consider the conscious suffering of Michaela, and it is not my intent in discussing this to cause further hurt to those who loved her, but it is my obligation to bring to the court's attention the evidence that shows how hard she fought for her life, though she was no match for the force that was used against her. It is apparent that she struggled to pry the defendant's large hands from her tiny neck, evidenced by that curvilinear mark that Dr. Greenwald discussed in her autopsy findings, consistent with her own fingernails attempting to pry those hands from her neck as he choked the life out of her. And in fact, his DNA was embedded under her fingernails. Perhaps that was from that struggle to release his grip from her neck, or perhaps that was DNA that she collected under her fingernails from the single tiny scratch that she managed to inflict on the defendant's body. Did she look into his eyes as she tried to free herself from his grip? Did she wonder how someone who had professed to be her best friend and to love her could be ending her life? We do not know precisely how long she struggled. We do not know how long she knew she was going to die at the hands of Julie Keene. But we know from the vast number and the nature of the injuries she suffered and the evidence of her attempts to fight off her attacker that it was prolonged and that she couldn't help but know that death was near. We are required as well to consider who is Julie Keene. And we have instruction from cases by our law courts about what particular things we should focus on when we try to assess who Mr. Keene is and the likelihood that he is even capable of any degree of rehabilitation. We are instructed to consider whether a defendant has an antisocial, hostile, or psychopathic character. And both the assessment done by Dr. Thorpe, even though offered by the defendant, and the assessment done by Dr. Wish suggest that he is antisocial, hostile, and perhaps even meets the characteristics of being a psychopath. Clearly meets a number of criteria for antisocial personality disorder, referenced both by Dr. Wish and recognized by Dr. Thorpe when he tested him and found that he had an elevated scale on the antisocial personality feature of the testing. He is a narcissist. It is always all about him. Even in a case where he brutally raped and murdered a person he claimed was his best friend, he cannot help but try to portray himself as the victim. In the pre-sentence questionnaire, where he is allowed to speak about his view of what happened, he reported that he was disgusted by these charges against him. How dare he? He claims to be a fall guy because the prosecutors, quote, need somebody to point the finger at because this case, quote, just looks really fucking bad on them. He claims to be so distressed by the death of his friend that he has tried to kill himself. And I say that with quotes around. 146 times by his reckoning. You must wonder, why does someone keep track of the number of times he claims to have tried to kill himself, except so that he can report it later in an attempt to gain your sympathy? Who takes a selfie of himself, claiming that he's in the act of killing himself, and writes a sad story so others will pity him? Did he pose for that picture repeatedly till he found the right picture to put on social media to gather sympathy from his friends and family? His self-absorption is not of recent vintage. His refusal to accept responsibility for what he does and his antisocial behavior is of considerable duration. He reports in high school that he too was a victim by teachers who claimed that he had threatened them 13 times, resulting in suspension. But of course, he wasn't really threatening them. It was their bigoted perception that made them claim that he was threatening them. He has provided us innumerable examples of his grandiose thinking. In the PSI questionnaire provided in the pre-sentence investigation, he describes himself as dating models, being a VIP guest at parties and clubs, traveling the world, playing pro football, being charismatic, and having a gorgeous wife. A gorgeous wife whose address he does not know. He pretends he wasn't Michaela's killer, but instead pretends to recover memories of his attempts to save her life by giving her CPR, as if he is the hero. He is such a great guy. He wants you to think that it's to his credit that Michaela's family viewed him long ago as a mentor to her little brother. And he thinks it's to his credit that they would invite him into their family to bake holiday cookies. But he just doesn't get it. That doesn't speak well of him, it speaks well of them. And when a family takes you in and trusts you, and you repay them by murdering their loved one, you are not a charismatic man, and you are not a good guy. He continues to fail to accept responsibility. This is not, as well, a recent issue. The court has evidence before it that in the criminal past that he has, that's been documented both in the PSI and the state sentencing memo, that when he committed a felony burglary at age 15, he claimed he really didn't. Although he was identified by his co-defendant as being present, and there was videotape that showed two people committing the burglary. He claimed that the theft for which he was convicted at Walmart wasn't really him stealing, it was just that he had this medication and it sort of messed with his mind, and he was essentially the victim of prescription medication gone wild. But when you mine the facts of that crime, in fact it was a rather calculated theft designed to be successful so that he could get property without paying for it, and he attempted, through a not unclever ruse, to try to avoid capture when he was discovered at that theft. In his testimony in this trial, he would not even admit that it was him in that video dragging Michaela's body. His response was, "It appears to be." He feigned concern and surprised about Michaela's disappearance. He went to the home of the woman whose dead body he had just buried to get his phone and his wallet. He put on the facade of normality and concern. He even tried the ruse of calling Michaela's phone, knowing she was dead and buried and would never respond to him, to try to look like he was uninvolved. He participated in a search for her body, all the while trying to lead searchers away from where he had buried her. I guess it's a natural corollary of not accepting responsibility that you have no remorse. And as I thought about what it really means to have an absence of remorse, I believe it really means you have an absence of conscience, and at a minimum, an absence of insight. Without conscience, without insight, there is no motivation for him to change his selfish, destructive, brutal behavior. It seems impossible for him to consider how his behavior has affected others, Michaela, her family, her friends, even his own family and his wife. Where is the sympathy in any of these documents for her? He's too busy being sorry for himself. In the pre-sentence investigation, he claimed to, and this is a quote, believe in honor. Well, honor requires self-sacrifice, doing what is hard because it is right, caring for others more than for yourself. Honor is answering the call to run into the collapsing twin towers to save others. Honor is to spend sleepless days and nights without complaint investigating the death of a young woman you had never known. Honor is keeping vigil during the trial of your child's, your grandchild's, your friend's murderer, though the pain of it is overwhelming. There is no honor in overpowering a young woman who rejected your advances. There is no honor in battering her body over and over again. There is no honor in sexually abusing a person you claimed was your best friend. There is no honor in offering false comfort and concern to those suffering the greatest loss possible. There is no honor in pretending you are the victim in the wake of your brutal killing of another human. There is no honor in, quote, bullshitting those trying to solve your friend's murder. There is no honor in Jalika King. Because of the vicious, sadistic manner in which he took Michaela Conley's life, because he has been committing crimes for years and hurting others in the process, because he refuses to accept responsibility for his crimes, pretending instead that he is the victim, because he lacks remorse, because of his antisocial, hostile character, devoid of conscience. We ask the court to sentence Jalika King to life in prison for the murder of Michaela Conley, and to sentence him to a concurrent 30 years for his sexual assault against Michaela. Judge, there are family members and friends who would like to address you about their loss. I'm going to ask them to come up to the railing one at a time, and I will let the court know which of them does not want to be photographed. First, Stacy Crowley would like to address the court.
My name is Stacy Crowley, STACEY-CROWLEY.
Your Honor, Ms. Crowley does not object to being photographed.
From the moment I met Michaela, I knew this beautiful girl was someone special. I had no idea what a positive impact she would have on my life and my daughter Morgan's. She was the unconditional, soulful, fun-loving close friend that my child needed. She brought comfort, laughter, and a love of adventure to our quiet, dull lives. We had a routine, always a hug when she entered, and always an I love you when she left. So grateful that the last words exchanged were our heartfelt love yous. Michaela understood me. She accepted me. She could see I needed help finding my way back to a normal life after a very long illness. She is one of the sole reasons for my productive, healthy, hard-working life I live today. She brought me to the Two Cats family, got me the job that I love, and introduced me to a close group of friends that I will have for the rest of my life. All this wonderful from an 18-year-old gypsy soul. I've been a part of this hellish nightmare since the moment it began. The vortex that surrounds a 500-foot radius has nearly sucked the life out of everyone that loved Michaela. The defendant created that vortex. He has taken the sound of happy children playing on the playground and turned it into a gut-wrenching feeling in the pit of my stomach. All while I have to put on a happy face waiting on customers at Two Cats. The flashbacks I have of his unspeakable act leave me shaken and fearful, as I still can't imagine that Michaela is a 19-year-old raped and brutalized murder victim. I have watched every ounce of innocence disappear from every young person in Michaela's life. It's heart-wrenching. My daughter has been stripped of her trust, her ability to live her best life, and the one friend that would stood by her for a lifetime. 4 years with Michaela is not a lifetime. Creating a new normal for us has been exhausting. When my child leaves the house, I pray each time that she never encounters the pure evil that she has come to know exists. She's hypervigilant of her friends and her surroundings. There is no peace, no innocence left. Milestones will never be shared again. Michaela did not get to see Morgan graduate, the friend that encouraged her more than any other to get her diploma. No more vacations in Florida together, no more sleepovers, no more birthdays, and no more snippets of singing and recording a fun-filled teenage life. It's all been taken away, and now it's time for him to go away. After the sentencing today, he will no longer take up space in our daily lives. The healing begins now. Thank you, Your Honor.
Our next, Morgan DeWicki, in front of Michaela, would like to address the court. Morgan DeWicki. She does not object to being photographed.
If you could state and spell your name, please, for the record.
Morgan DeWicki, Morgandawicki.
Proceed.
I only knew Michaela for a little over 4 years, but in those 4 years, she became much more than a friend to me. She became family. In those years, our connection only grew as we did. She was like no one I'd ever met before. She cared about those around her so deeply in a way I'd never seen before, that watching her love those who were in her life only encouraged me to love harder and stronger. She emitted an energy that will forever remain around me, one that I never knew I needed so much to live as all I had. To be a part of her life was the truest blessing I will ever see, let alone hold. Everyone who knew Michaela knew her in their own way. She left everyone with a piece of herself. But we still all find ourselves wanting to put the puzzle together and have it be whole again. And I know we will forever. Trying to comprehend everything as a whole has proven itself impossible. My mind continues to grab at all the remaining facts, trying to make sense of everything. But the days keep going and the months keep passing, and I still find myself reflecting each and every day. I continue to wonder what was going through the defendant's head, his veins, and his heart to hurt Michaela the way he did. His words haunting me when he asked me if she had tried to come to my house, when he knew exactly where she was. When I think about it, I'm right back at Connor's Emerson, looking into his eyes and hearing his words. How is he not consumed by what he did? How did he find the audacity to help us look? His haunting demeanor then and now baffles me. I see him for what really lives inside him, and that is pure evil. Not only has he taken the person most of us in this courtroom cared about most, he has taken life away from himself. Everything is a product of him. He's the reason he's sitting in a cell. He's the reason we are all here today. He's the reason that for the rest of my life, I will never see things the way I used to, and that my trust will forever be damaged, and that the one and only true friend I ever had is gone. I hope he reflects each and every single day on what he's done and what he's taken away from the world.
Our next, Danny Ray, a friend of Michaela's, would like to address the court, and Danny does not object to being photographed.
Email to Ray, R-A-Y. When someone makes us angry, upset, tells us no, do we react with malicious intent? Do we assault them, rape them, brutally murder them, and walk away unscathed and unaffected? No, we do not. Julie Keene did. Julie Keene behaves arrogantly without remorse or regret. He has offered no comfort for a family that so lovingly opened their home to him. He is pathetic, and he is smug. I was so blessed to have known Michaela Conley. My oldest daughter danced with Michaela's younger sister Sophia from age 3 to present. And Michaela's mother Danielle has become a dear friend over the years. I watched Michaela grow from an adventurous, spunky little girl into the beautiful woman she became. Michaela was light and love. She was a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a friend, a role model, and a fabulous human being. A human being with plans, hopes, and dreams. She was the type of person that filled the room with love and laughter, and put people at ease with her mere presence. She was conscientious, caring, trustworthy, reliable, and above all, a joy and a blessing. May 31st was much like any other day. Michaela, who worked for a family business, arrived to work with her glorious smile and pleasant, contagious nature. Michaela was scheduled for just a half a day so she could drive to Boston to pick up 2 friends. About noon, I urged Michaela to get on the road. We chatted and giggled as we often did before we hugged and she bounded out the back door. For some reason, my heart told me I should tell her I love her, but she was gone in excited anticipation of seeing friends. I will never have the chance to tell her again. I won't have a chance to chat and giggle with her, and I never imagined this would be the last time I would see Michaela alive. On June 1st, Danielle, who also worked for our family, arrived to work. After a short time, we spoke on the phone and she told me that Michaela was missing and of the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. My heart sank, and I immediately knew something was horribly wrong. Michaela adored her mother, beyond measure. She would absolutely never leave her mother to wonder and worry about her whereabouts. We immediately went to BN Close and started searching for Michaela. We searched again on Saturday until the news that she had been found. I was initially relieved until I suddenly realized the tragic, crippling reality. Michaela had not been found. Her body was found. My heart broke for Michaela, her family, her friends, and all that knew her. The next days were heart-wrenching as the facts unfolded and the reality of Michaela's last moments were disclosed, revealing torture and torment, such a beautiful life taken so brutally and tragically. I struggled with all the emotions I was feeling, how such a vicious crime could ever happen, while the perpetrator, Julie King, sat in bars drinking with friends, tried to distract the search, and expressed absolutely no remorse or accountability for the loss of a friend and his heinous crime. On June 1st, the world changed. Danielle's children are her world. She has always unselfishly given 110% of herself to her children. So unselfishly that she never considered any of what she did for her children to be a sacrifice or inconvenience. Her schedule was whatever her children needed, and it brought her great joy. Danielle is the strongest woman I know. I have watched her grow and come alive over the years. Now she merely exists. Existing is not living at all. She was Miss Kayla's greatest support and best friend. She will never hold her daughter again and lay in bed with her at night, giggling like two little schoolgirls. She won't get to see her daughter blossom. Or hold her hand, or walk her down the aisle, or watch her dreams materialize. Michaela will never come home. Instead, there will always be a gaping hole where she belongs, and nothing will ever be the same. Danielle has only the memories, beautiful memories that should have been some more. Sophia won't have her big sister, Michaela, to lean on, to laugh and cry with and do all the crazy things that sisters do. She will never fully trust again. She will never have the road trips or make more amazing memories with her sister. Instead, she has a constant ache and a hole in her heart. She is a child, and this will impact her life in more ways than already seen. Alex, her brother, so young, cannot even process this loss and how Jolie King, an individual he trusted, could do this to his sister and his family. He harbors anger and sadness that even he cannot fully express. He has lived the unimaginable, and the effect is yet to be seen. For Amethyst and Sapphire, they lost a little sister, a sister that they taught so much, but were not there to protect in the end. What does this do? Michaela's friends will never have the contagious smile and laughter and the steadfast friend that was love and loyalty. They will never walk together on the beach or celebrate their 21st birthdays. Their worlds have been shattered, and they will never be the same. There will never be a day or holiday that is the same for those who knew and loved Michaela. Her favorite holiday, Christmas, will never be the magical day that Michaela needed. Her community will never feel 100% safe. I was recently speaking with my 15-year-old daughter about her relationships and telling her she needed to allow people to get close to her and be a friend. She broke into tears and told me I did not understand. I asked her to help me understand. She told me that ever since what happened to Michaela, she trusts no one. The loss of Michaela has affected so many people in so many ways. Our safe community feels corrupt, our children are devastated, and our hearts are broken in a million pieces, and we just do not know how to heal. Julie Keene made a choice in the wee hours of June 1st. He made a choice that robbed Michaela of any further choices. Michaela made a choice to offer her time to pick up a friend from the airport, a selfless choice that she made without hesitation. Julie made this the last devastating choice Michaela would ever make. He made a choice that would ever change the lives of countless people in an entire community. And Julie has shown not an ounce of remorse for Michaela, her family, or her friends. A life is not the premise behind the hope that Julie King is sentenced to life in prison. It is a plea for justice. Justice for Michaela, her family, her friends, and the community. A plea that will prevent Julie King from devastating another family and community.
Mackenzie Myers, another of Michaela's many friends, would like to speak, and Mackenzie does not want to speak.
Kiana Baranowski, K-I-A-N-A-B-A-R-A-N-O-W-S-K-I. I remember receiving a call from Danielle early in the morning. Michaela is missing. They found her shoes and cell phone on the playground at Connors Emerson, and my stomach dropped. Michaela has been one of mine since she was 3 years old, a sibling to my daughters, a mainstay in my home, one of ours. Michaela grew up in and out of my home, celebrating all holidays, birthdays, family trips, always coming and going as one of the kids. I knew her like one of my own, and I knew this wasn't right. It didn't feel right. A teenage girl does not leave her shoes and cell phones behind. We set up a search party that the defendant came to. I asked him direct questions about Michaela's whereabouts, and he stood there with eyes darting side to side, fidgety and restless as he lied directly to our faces. When he announced that he was going down to the shore path and left the search party, I felt it. Something was not right. My heart sank again. I felt so scared to start looking for her. I felt gutted and scared, but I hung on to hope. Please let us find her alive. Then the call came. The family needed to meet at Danielle's with the detective. In that moment, our lives were forever altered. The detective said those words that no parent ever wants to hear. We found her body. I watched my best friend, her mother, die in that moment. I watched the color bleed out of her face as we all dropped to our knees. I watched her siblings' faces change in that moment. Innocence ripped from their precious hearts. They were never going to be the same. The screams, the wailing, and the look of agony on everyone's faces haunts me to this day. How could this be? No, this just can't be. But there we were, and there it was. Those words had been spoken, and no one was taking them back. In one moment of anger and rage, he ended a life. He ended Michaela's life. He took from her the opportunity to live, to love, to dream, and to one day have her own family. It was senseless and brutal. Our sweet Michaela's last moments on this earth were brutal, and they were terrifying. I can't wrap my head around it, and it rips through me like a knife. I see images in my mind that shred me to my core. Because he is not taking accountability for his actions. We may never know why he did this to her. All we know is that he did do it. And now we sit here waiting to hear what the value of our Michaela's life will be. In years for him. It is an unfair trade. It doesn't feel fair to me that Michaela doesn't get a voice in this. We have to be her voice now. She deserves justice, and I truly hope that he receives the absolute maximum sentence for his actions. What he did to Michaela was brutal and evil. Not a single part of that precious body was untouched by his brutality. He dragged her lifeless body and covered her with dirt. He washed that dirt off of himself and then walked to her mother's house and hugged her. He left her like trash, and he deserves justice for that. We, her family, deserve justice. There is no amount of years that will be enough for what he did. Michaela's life has so much more value than this. That said, I wish for him his life behind bars. It's not a fair trade, but it's the most that we can hope for. In closing, I want to say, Michaela, we're here, my love.
united with our voices advocating for you. I missed her absolutely contagious laughter and that twinkle in her eyes. I missed that beautiful smile and her goofy personality. I miss her, and it's unfair. We shouldn't have to miss her like this. Our lives will never be the same without our beautiful Michaela. May justice be served today.
Michaela's sister, Amethyst, died in the fight to address the court. The man who raised Michaela since she was 3 years old, Ernie Geiger, her stepfather, would like to speak.
Say and spell your name.
Ernest Geiger, E-A-R-N-E-S-T-G-E-I-G-E-R.
Mind being filmed, Mr. Geiger?
No, June 2nd, 2018 is the day that changed my life forever. The day my daughter's life was cut short, the day Michaela was taken from us. In the summer of 2002, Michaela, her birth father Chris, and her mother Danielle came to Bar Harbor. Stopped at the restaurant with the two dancing cats. That's the day Michaela met my two daughters, Amethyst and Sapphire. And they bonded instantly like sisters. Michaela had such a bright personality, and it was hard not to adore her. Over the next years, things changed in all our lives. Danielle and I moved in together, started a family of our own, and the girls were so happy to be sisters. Tragedy struck in Michaela's life. Her birth father, Chris Conley, passed away unexpectedly. She had just turned 4 and her little heart was broken. When faced with the news, she came to me and hugged me so tightly. And from that moment, I vowed not to let her down and to be her dad. Watching her grow up was such a joy. Christmas was her absolute favorite holiday. Hosting her birthday parties, going to parent-teacher conferences, putting money under her pillow from the tooth fairy. Watching her and the other kids get all done up for Halloween. Watching her play basketball in junior high with Coach Borden. Or falling asleep on my shoulders coming back from watching the fireworks. These memories and many more I'll cherish forever. The sound of her laughter, the sound of her voice as a young child, the sound of her voice as an adolescent, and the sound of her voice as a grown woman. I hope I never forget these things. On June 1st, 2018, when Sapphire came to my door and asked if I'd seen Michaela, my heart sank. The kids were typical teens, and normally this wouldn't have alarmed me. But her shoes and her phone and her car were found, but no Michaela. The following day, June 2nd, while still searching tirelessly for Michaela, the news no parent wants to hear was given to Danielle and I by the Maine State Police. We found the body of Michaela. I fell to my knees and cried. My life would never be the same. My life had been taken less than 200 yards from where I was sleeping. On the grounds of the grade school she had gone to, and the playground all my children played on, had grown up on. Their memories of childhood had now been changed forever. Over the next few days, to say it was stressful as a major understatement. The state police did their job well, and her killer was in custody by June 4th. Her murderer was a friend, someone she put trust into, and as it turned out, was nothing but a wolf in sheep's clothing. A monster in its purest form. The impact that this has had on me and my loved ones has been devastating. Our lives are forever changed for the worse. I've had a lump in my throat and tears in my eyes every day since losing Michaela. It seems the world spins twice as fast as it used to. Everyone seems to be running circles around me. I used to consider myself a great motivating leader at work, and now I find it impossible to go to bed in the morning and difficult to focus at work. My family relationships have suffered greatly as well. The same reasons. This tragedy has also affected my family and friends many miles away. Its ripple effect has touched many lives in many states and in our community of Bar Harbor. It has a devastating effect on my children and those of my partner, Dara, who Michaela had grown close to before she was taken from us. I ask that this court take all these statements presented here today in close consideration and never allow the monster that took my little girl, our beloved Michaela, away from us to be free ever again. Thank
you. Lastly, Your Honor, Danielle Tinney, Michaela's mother, would like to speak. behalf of all those who knew and loved Michaela, on behalf of the state, thank you for your consideration of our words.
Right to there.
You want to take a break?
You need a moment.
No, but I didn't know.
I've already checked. You may proceed.
All right. These are the hardest parts of any case. I've prepared a memorandum. I would indicate that when you get a murder case, you generally are guided by the facts as they come in. I never ask what happened. I figure I'll find out as I go along. Cases go as they go, and in this case, our client had a way he wanted it presented, and we presented it that way. The jury has spoken, and my memo addresses the verdict, not my client's position in some respects. He disagrees with my memo in certain areas, and I'm trying to explain that I have to give you a presentation based on what the jury found. Life sentence is a harsh result. It's reserved for the worst cases. I've outlined for you several cases that I've personally been involved in that I think are more brutal than this one. As Megan has seen them outline, when you get to this part of the case, obviously the family wants the worst, and I can understand that. But we grade cases, sadly to say. I've participated in some form or fashion over 30 murder cases in 30 years of doing this, in whether it's trial counsel, appellate counsel, or post-convictions. I've tried a lot of murder cases, and I've met with some people that are probably where they should be. We look at the facts of the case as found by the jury, and I think the distinguishing factor is the timing, and I've outlined that in my memo, and I don't want to elaborate on that anymore than to say I find the McCarthy case that I participated in years ago is probably the closest we could do to factually accurate in this case. Sept, killing, tire iron in the head. Actually, it was a rim of the tire, the metal part, and then a 60-year sentence. I have to give you comparables, so you put this on a continuum. I don't believe that this is a life sentence, and that is my mission to convey that. You will take into consideration what I've said in my argument, I hope. I've distinguished the cases that the state and the probation officer provided to you. I've outlined in my memo how I think that those are distinguished. And I've addressed the short sleeve factors that we alluded to, the gateway issues, the life sentence. The court does not necessarily need to impose a life sentence in this case. My client would like to address the court. I don't know if the sequence would be he addresses first, but I do have at least 2 people that want to talk to the court first. His biological mother and his daughter.
There are individuals other than the defendant, let's hear from them, and then obviously hear from the defendant, so the defendant has an opportunity to hear everyone's comments.
I do not wish to be photographed.
You would defer photograph, just state your name, so.
Barbara Keene, Barbarakeene.
Proceed, Ms. Keene. State your name and spell it for the record, please.
Christy Jordan, CHRISTIE, JORDAN.
And Ms. Jordan, you proceed.
I'm the biological mother of Jaleel. Your Honor, I'm writing you this letter so you'll have a better understanding of my biological son, Jaleel Keene. The media has portrayed something different than what I've known is true. We have not come forward to the media due to consideration of the families and the children. We do want you to have a true sense of how Jaleel grew up and his sense of family. Jaleel is the second of my 7 children. He was born a healthy baby on March 15, 1987. He was a happy child, very loving, and always caring for his siblings. When he was 6 years old, he went to live with his amazing adoptive parents. He was an active child. He was in every activity and sport from bowling to track to football. Jalik took his football to a different level, going to West Virginia State College and then off to Europe. When my son reached out to me in 2010, we were all reunited. Family vacations started. They were always about camping, hiking, and making unforgettable memories with his younger siblings. There are no words to describe what we have gone through this past year, 3 months and 10 days. Grief, anger, shock, heartbreak, and loss. Nothing has been the same. My son Jalik has had to face that his life will never be the same. I speak as biological mother of Jalik. I wish to take a moment to address the family of Michaela. I too have terrible nightmares every day. I have 2 daughters myself. I cannot imagine losing any of my children. I am so sorry we are here today. However, there's a point in life when you have to accept that your child is grown and makes their own decisions, good or bad. On the respect of the facts that the jury has found my son guilty, I have no words to explain why this unfortunate event has had to happen to these 2 wonderful families. And I'm so sorry that it did. I'm so sorry, all of us are, that Michaela is not here with us today. I know, Your Honor, that you have the power in deciding the next phase of Jalik's life. I pray that you consider all the facts from both families. Thank you.
I previously inquired who wanted to law organizations. We have met with our client in preparation for today. Met this morning, actually, we expected to Monday, we told him he can speak and not speak. It's always his choice. He wants to read a statement to you.
Mr. Keene, if you wish to address the court, you may do so at this time. You may do so from that position on the podium. Please stand, whichever one.
He's projected, so I don't think he can.
I'll stand. This is what
Yep.
I'd like to first point out, I disagree with points on the memo, and I, at the very least, want it in record. I'll say that I was in love with and obsessed with Michaela. That's the one thing that I can't allow to go by without saying something. Much of my freedom has been taken. Much of my life has been taken. I understand your point of view. But you will not tell me who I love or who I have loved. And I had a great deal of love for Michaela. I was never in love with her. I was always in love with a girl named Natalie. That's besides the point. I wanted to address that before speaking. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Hancock County Jail for their overwhelming care and kindness towards me throughout my 11.5 months with them. When I was struggling a great deal, and the world called me a monster, the jail staff showed the utmost professionalism and cared for me not just as an inmate, but as a person. They displayed commendable They displayed a commendable amount of decency, and I don't believe they received nearly as much respect and recognition as they deserve. So thank you for everything. No amount of words will ever be able to express my sorrow for the loss of such a beautiful soul. I take full responsibility for the death of Michaela. If it wasn't for me, none of us would have been there at that playground that night. I offered a life sentence at the plea conference for my irresponsibility. You said such awful things about me, but I had no problem with a 100-year sentence. Michaela was worth 10 times that amount. There are 2 reasons behind the sentence that bothered me, and that's exactly what I told the judge. Even if you offered to let me out tomorrow, I'd never plead guilty for such a disgusting betrayal. I'm so sorry that I can't lift this pain from your shoulders. You've claimed that I'm acting this way because I have no feeling, that I'm void of empathy and emotion. You're entitled to your own opinion and perspective, and it would be selfish and arrogant for me to force my opinion or perspective onto you. I try to make people feel better. It's one of the few things I'm good at. I learned at a young age that words can heal wounds that bandages cannot. And I could try to change your opinion of me with stories of kindness and care, attention shown to others so they don't have to feel alone. But a person isn't nice so they can brag about it, and I didn't do those things for you. So I won't take away from those moments by using them to try and make you think better of me. I'm sorry that you feel this way though. You can hate me, but you'll never hate me more than I hate myself. You say I'm emotionless, and that's okay. Please know that 147 times I've tried to take this. And I kept track because I begged to God that I could trade my life for Michaela's. Or at least tell her I'm sorry that I failed her. And over again, I haven't been able to die, no matter how much I want. I made a promise to someone in June of 2018. I would not resist or fight. I would not try to run or escape, nor would I cry out for relief. I let you wrap me in chains and bring me from cage to cage like an animal, forcing me to watch as my life was torn apart. How badly I wanted to trade spots with another and have my freedom back. That changed a few months ago, on June 24th. I woke up in a pool of my own blood with my wrist slit, while being held in solitary confinement in maximum security prison. That's when I figured out that, if anything, I'm grateful. If someone has to go through this torture and feel all this pain, then I'm glad that it's me, because I can take it, and others could not. God gave me the ability to endure even when I don't want to. I wouldn't wish this experience on my worst enemy. So if hating me can somehow make you feel better, then who am I to take that away? If I can relieve your anger, grief, and confusion in any way by beating your punching bag, then swim away. All I can do is be grateful that it's me suffering the blows instead of someone else. Just or unjust, who am I to decide that someone deserves such pain? Only God can judge. So to the person I made a promise to, I've kept it. All I ask in return is that you live the best life that you can, because you live for the both of us now. Second chances are rare in life. Don't waste yours. And to anyone else that I was ever able to make feel better, laugh or smile, I would be a friend too. I ask you to please remember me for those things, as that person, not this monster they've tried to turn me into. My heart goes out to all of you out there who are going through pain in your lives, particularly Michaela's family and friends. And to those who have turned their backs or speak ill of me, I still love you. I would never intentionally harm any of my friends. I'd take a bullet for them. I'd die for them. I'd go to prison for them. So you can give me whatever sentence you prefer. No amount of time will hate. No amount of time will hurt as much as your words have. I just wish instead of torturing me with confinement and isolation, you just kill me. And to my pale half-brother, Begrobi Atalia Vidal, I love my family. I'm sorry for all the sorrow that's come from this.
Mr. Baker,
We have nothing. Thank you.
Ms. Elon, any further from the state?
It is apparent that the ripples of the pain that has been caused by Julie Keene continue today. There are many innocent victims in this case. He is not one of them. He is not anybody's punching bag. He is not the victim. He is not being dragged from cage to cage. He has enjoyed, as every defendant does and should, the benefits of due process and representation and the opportunity to be heard and to speak for himself. All gifts that he denied to Michaela. It is not true that none of us knows what happened that night. He knows what happened that night. But he cannot even bring himself to provide the cold comfort of telling the truth about it even now. It was said that he has to come to grips with the fact that his life will never be the same. Well, that's because of his decisions. And that's because of his behavior. And that's because of his cruelty. He was the one who made the choices here. And he was the one who took all the choices away from Michaela. It's nearly laughable if it weren't so tragic that he claims to take full responsibility for what happened today. What he's willing to take responsibility for is that he gave alcohol to an underage girl. And that he didn't stick around with her so that she ended up murdered by someone else. How pitiful that he cannot even own what he did today. His self-involvement and his complete absence of understanding about what happened here has borne itself out today in even greater clarity than perhaps it has before. And because of that, the likelihood that he could ever gain insight or accept responsibility or feel remorse in a way that would protect all of us from his future acting out violent, cruel behavior, he's just proved that that will never occur, that he continues to be self-pitying and showing no pity for what he did to that girl.
The court at this juncture will take some time to organize my own thoughts after having heard the input from this morning. I anticipate returning shortly with the court's determination. All rise.